This is Julia James Davis, and welcome to The War on Beauty. I was looking back at old videos I made on this exact YouTube channel before it was called The War on Beauty. It was just a personal YouTube channel where I sporadically posted videos about modern contemporary art. And it was really from this very long era in my life of absolutely loving modern and contemporary art. So I looked back at some of those old videos and I posted a few clips on my Instagram of them.
Hello, Julia James Davis here. And I'm back with another video series, and this one is going to be a three-part series on some of the most important and talented women artists working today. So today I'm going to be talking about the relationship that developed between the critic and the artist during the 1960s post-war period. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite pop artists, Claes Oldenburg. So I'm going to start off with a quote by Oldenburg that I really think sums up the aims that he's trying to achieve in his art. He says, "I'm for an art that is political, erotical, mystical, that does something other than sit on its ass in a museum. And I'm for the art of bread wet by rain. I'm for the rat's dance between floors. I'm for the art of flies walking on a slick pear in the electric light. I'm for the art of soggy onions and firm green shoots. I'm for the art of clicking among the nuts when the roaches come and go. I'm for the brown, sad art of rotting apples."
And I got so many comments asking, what changed? What happened to cause this shift from loving modernism, art that I might even go so far as to call ugly now, to loving traditional beauty? What changed? And the thing is, we look around at this art that's celebrated in our time, and it seems pretty obvious that it's crazy, it's absurd, and even giving it the name art feels like a misnomer. A piece of trash here, a pile of candy there, a building stacked with tires, or a toilet on a pedestal. How can we call all of those things art? Because it's such a far cry from the artistic wonders of the past, of Bernini and Da Vinci and Rubens, and many of the other greats who defined the category of art as this incredible striving for high beauty and excellence. And I think, though, what happened to me might be a perfect microcosm for what's happened to the collective and this great losing sight of beauty. So let's start from the beginning. I was so blessed to be raised in a family that really valued the arts and culture and wanted to foster that in me, because I think I was born with an innate love of art and my parents saw that and wanted to cultivate it. So as a result, I was always attending exhibits and museums and traveling around the world with my parents. And I think what's unique about them, my mom, who was the one who really took me to a lot of museums, we went to all types of exhibits, everything from retrospectives on Impressionism to Cindy Sherman and Herb Ritts. So I had a very wide exposure to different kinds of art. But one moment at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, which is where I am from, was when I was around 5 years old, and it changed my life. I saw The Judgment of Solomon by Matthias Stom, who is a follower of Caravaggio in Utrecht, and it absolutely stopped me in my tracks. Being so young, I didn't know anything about this painting. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know the Bible story it was referencing. It just struck me and actually made me slightly upset, but upset in a way that really demanded that I stay in its presence and look more. I don't think I really could have walked away from this painting if I wanted to. I was so engrossed, and this is such a deep core memory in me. I was so deeply moved in my soul. And that moment, I can now look back and understand it was an encounter with true beauty. And that beauty, true beauty, is inextricably tied to truth, a truth that is spiritual or metaphysical. So That experience, plus another one that I remember from, I think, a little bit younger. I was maybe 3 or 4. I remember visiting Versailles with my family and loving it so much. I did not want to leave. I wanted to move in. I loved Marie Antoinette. I just thought of her as this incredible lover of beauty. Her bedroom, the feathers coming out of her bed, the gilding, the incredible fabric. And when I heard that they killed her, the people that lived in this beauty, I thought I'd actually never heard anything so tragic in my whole life. How could people be against this? It was all so incredibly beautiful, and that it was kind of something put a stop to it really felt so heartbreaking to me. So all of this to say is that I think having these experiences as a young, innocent child before really knowing anything about art, having an education, or really any real life experiences shows the innate human preference and desire for beauty. It's important, and it's not just pleasing to the eye, but necessary for the soul. Even if the encounter with beauty, like in the Judgment of Solomon, isn't necessarily pleasant or comfortable. Beauty does not mean pretty. It is something extremely deep and truthful, and truth is not always something easy. But things change because as we grow up, as we get more educated, and basically life happens, all of that starts to kind of cover over the innocence and instincts that we have that orient us towards the true and the good and the beautiful. So fast forward to middle school, and if you watch this channel, you know that while I'm a Catholic now, I was not raised religiously. Although my mom was baptized Catholic, she converted to Judaism when she married my father, and so I was raised as a secular Jew. And outside of going to temple on high holy days and important holidays, I had no relationship with God at all. And I'll post my conversion story in the description. So when I got older and adolescence kicked in, along with difficulties in my life, which I also made a video about, and I'll link that below too, I started to struggle more with depression and anxiety and just general angst. So while my obsession with art endured, my tastes completely changed from traditional beauty to modern and contemporary art, which is not beautiful. It's really interesting because another moment in my journey with art really sticks out. And that is one weekend I was at the Menil Collection with my family, which is a very famous museum in Houston. They have the Rothko Chapel, which is really famous. And we were roaming the galleries when I had this encounter with a sculpture by Robert Gober. It was a sink with all of these little girl legs coming out of it. And the legs were very lifelike, and I'm telling you, I immediately felt like I was going to throw up, and I could not get out of the gallery fast enough. I told my family never to bring that sculpture up again. I did not ever want to think about it, and I've never had an experience like that in my entire life. And although I didn't think about it much at the time, I didn't want to think about it, it was another very important moment, a counterpoint to the one that I had with the Judgment of Solomon, where instead of realizing the truth of beauty, I encountered the reality of objective ugliness. I saw that provoking a reaction is very different from deeply moving a viewer through beauty. But despite that, I continued down the path of pursuing this kind of art. For my high school graduation, I asked my dad to drive me 8 hours from Houston to Marfa to look at all of the endless Dan Flavin light bulbs and Donald Judd boxes and John Chamberlain cars and John Wesley hard edge paintings. In retrospect, I believe that as one gets further away from truth and from God and the true joy which only He can give, which it seems like little children have access to innately, the more one can justify, tolerate, and even enjoy practically anything. Despite that, I think looking back on that whole time, I'm so grateful that it happened because I know that God had me on a path the whole time, and I really learned so much. But what changed? Simply a conversion to Jesus, the true light that allows you to perceive, not just see, which are two very, very different things. Watching one of my old videos the other day, I was prompted to go back and read Clement Greenberg's seminal essay from 1960 titled Modernist Art. So Greenberg was an important art critic and major champion of abstract expressionism in the post-war period of New York City, and he defines modernism as a self-critical tendency of questioning the foundations of things. It is, he says, the intensification, almost the exacerbation of this self-critical tendency that began with the philosopher Kant. Greenberg says that the Enlightenment era philosophers criticize things from the outside, and modernism is similarly critical, but criticizes from the inside. The criticism was aimed at a sort of purification and eschewing of everything superfluous and unjustified in something, whether that be painting or other areas. And this critical tendency really undermined the foundations not just of beauty, but of the real perception that we're able to have through faith and connection to God. Greenberg touches on the secularization of everything that happened during the Enlightenment. He says, we know what has happened to an activity like religion, which could not avail itself of Kantian immanent criticism in order to justify itself. So this really led to the separation of church and state and a decline in faith in the public. So the thing is, though, is that religion and faith have always been the great driver of beauty and excellence, from the Gothic cathedrals to the works of Michelangelo. Beauty is a characteristic of God. It's only possible with Him. So what happened as we cut ourselves off from religion and faith is that we were not only cut off from the inspiration and propulsion towards beauty, but also the ability to recognize and value it. This critiquing and justifying of everything within the limits of pure reason has led, ironically, not to a deeper connection with the truth, but a mass delusion and confusion in every area. Instead of religion, we have endless therapy and a rise in mental illness. Instead of understanding of the fact that God created man and woman in His image, we now can't even define what a woman is. Instead of respect for human life, we now have endless abortion, war, and the politicization of everything, which has led to a dehumanization of everyone. So the empirical, rational process of criticism born out of the Enlightenment was applied to the whole world, from religion to art. So he describes this process as a sort of convergence of modern science and modern art. He says this convergence shows, quote, the profound degree to which modernist art belongs to the same cultural tendency as modern science, and this is of the highest significance as a historical fact, which has led to where we are now, which is a stripped down, unbeautiful, non-mysterious, prosaic world, which in this so-called purity has led to a regression in every area of life. In dogmatic rationality, we've become unrational and less wise, going down an either-or path, which instead of leading us to the truth, has led us further and further away from it. So while there's so many facets to the war on beauty, I think that this is could be an explanation for why art, architecture, and fashion have become so ugly, and we just tolerate it. We just put up with it, and at this point, we don't even question it. So in conclusion, the return of my taste to beauty by coming to know Jesus and therefore more of the truth is really actually, interestingly, full circle to where I started as a kid. Truth and illumination naturally bring beauty, and this is a process that occurs on the heart level and not the intellect. So if we can return to Christ, we can start to see the reality of just how decimated our world has become and begin the process of rebuilding with beauty. But I think that, at least in my own experience, all of this starts with our own selves, our own lives, and our own illumination through Jesus, and specifically His Holy Catholic Church. So these are just some of the thoughts I was having, reflecting on this journey from loving traditional beauty as a kid to modernist and contemporary art that now I would not even describe as art. Again, I don't think that's the proper term to apply to what is considered art these days, all the way back to loving traditional beauty. So I would love to know, what is the first encounter that you ever had with true beauty, and how did that affect you? I would really love to know in the comments. And I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.